Welcome, Chiefs Kingdom, to another edition of the Out of Structure Podcast. I'm Matt Stagner here with Ryan Kopp Jr., as always, on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network, here to celebrate another Chiefs victory on a Tuesday. Ron, how you feeling about Chiefs over the Raiders, 31-17?
Classic win for the Chiefs. It was nice to see, Stags, a little bit of, we're getting too used to a defensive team. We're getting too used to, to this team being led by their defense. This felt like a real classic Chiefs win. Chiefs defense kind of looking shaky early on, right? Raiders, Aiden O'Connell dicing them up right away. That was pretty impressive. We'll talk about it, but O'Connell was a pretty impressive dude yesterday. I was impressed with that dude from Purdue.
Yeah,
he's like a 4th round pick. Tom Child said he looked like me, so I don't know if we want to Stags. Do you have any takes there? I mean, I know the stash can. I'll let the people decide.
Yeah, I got nothing for you on that one. But, yeah, he had a couple of those passes that were, just nothing you could do about it. That one over McDuffie, it comes to mind right away. Like,
right.
There's often, we say that a perfect pass beats perfect coverage every time, or nearly every time. Sometimes there's just nothing you can do, and that was that one. So I don't think we should hold that against McDuffie. That was a dime.
Yeah, that was really good coverage. It actually reminded me, people who are frequent Twitter users like there was a viral clip of Sauce Gardner, doing a very similar thing where, he played good trailing coverage, turned at the ball, but, Jalen Waddle or someone just made a really nice catch, and someone was trying to point out, like, why is Sauce Gardner he's not that good. It's like, dude, cornerbacks have such a hard job. Like, deep passes, especially, like, you're not trying to DPI now. Like, it's ridiculous how hard corners, and that's why it's amazing how well, McDuffie, Snead, and them are playing. But again, it was shaky right off the bat, wasn't it, Stags? Devontae Adams got loose on the first drive. There was that wide open touchdown, but then they settled in. Chiefs offense scored 4 out of 5 possessions, touchdowns, and it felt like a vintage Chiefs win.
Yeah, what I loved was, there was a lot of, predictions that never come true. But our old guy, Nick Wright, put out right in the middle of that, right after the Josh Jacobs run, he said, prediction, that Josh Jacobs run, being down 14-0 to the Raiders, that will be the moment the Chiefs offense snaps out of the funk. And lo and behold, it pretty much was. And for them to go down, score a touchdown, and then get another one right before half, knowing that they get the ball back right after halftime, that sequence, was really encouraging for the offense.
Yeah, and honestly, the main thing I took away from the offense was they really just focused on getting their playmakers, in the best positions for them individually. I feel like they've really just, I feel like they've just been too rotating. They've spread out the ball, maybe a little too much this year. I think we've all kind of felt like that, right? They need to tighten up the rotation. I know it's something you felt like, but really just specifically the receivers, and I should say not the receivers, the pass catchers. It was nice to see, guys like Pacheco get loose on 2 screens. Someone like Rashee Rice, not only have the 2, quick passes on crossing routes, right? The shallow crossing routes, the one he took for a touchdown, obviously, but, also had the pass where he's catching over the corner on the sideline down the field. I mean, that's using your guys in more advantageous positions, using them for their strengths. That's Rice actually said in post game. He was like, I'm glad they did that because that's something I did in college really well. Like, he actually said that. Like, it's something we've been talking about. It's like, hey, this is what he was drafted for. He considered himself DeAndre Hopkins as a comparison because he can do those kind of catches. And it was a really nice toe tap, Stags. I know you probably like that. So, yeah, I don't know. That was the main thing to me is the offense just, like really just being focused on, all right, get your playmakers, the ball in the best ways they or in their, to utilize their strengths, I guess, the best way.
Absolutely. And, I sold them short a little bit, but they had a 12-play, 71-yard touchdown drive right after that Josh Jacobs run. Then they had an 8-play, 79-yard touchdown drive towards the end of the half. And then coming out of halftime with the ball back, another 10-play, 75-yard touchdown drive. So when was the last time we saw them actually take advantage of that, deferring to the second half, getting the ball right after halftime and being able to double up, getting a touchdown right before half and one right after. That hasn't happened in a long time, but that's the turning point of the game there. And the question might be, and we had a question actually from Xander Sahalia. I'm sure I butchered that pronunciation. My apologies. But is this the game where we see the offense really get it together moving forward? That might be the sequence. That giving up a long touchdown and then getting right back out there and going touchdown, touchdown, touchdown right before and after the half. That is some vintage, Andy Reid offense. That is some Mahomes. You saw every bit of it right there. And you're right. I think a lot of it is that they finally focused. I think they've been listening to this podcast, frankly. We've been talking for weeks about this offense should be built around Rashee Rice, Isaiah Pacheco, in addition to Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. That's the foursome. Maybe we should think of a fun nickname for them, but that's the group. That's the core of this offense going forward, and almost in that order. With Rice and Pacheco leading the way, and that's what happened this week. You give Rice 10 targets, and lo and behold, you get 100 yards and a touchdown out of him. So that is a recipe for success. And I think there was a lot of consternation about the wide receivers all season, partially because nobody got more than 3 targets a game, and nobody's going to have production with 3 targets a game, especially when some of those receivers are not the most efficient, that are MVS, who's not a big efficiency guy. He's always going to be 50 to 60% of his targets end up being catches, which is what he is. But if you only give him 3 targets and he misses 1 or 2 of those, he's not going to be a big production guy. So you got to focus on Rice, somebody who's developing, somebody who's got that ceiling, and who's already shown that he can adjust. And but start getting him the ball in ways that he can do what he does best.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. I mean, it really was. It might have been forced, right? Like you look at the injury report and you see that McCole Hardman's on IR. He's no longer in the rotation now. I know they got Richie James back in, back in the mix as well. But Jerick McKinnon, didn't play this game. Obviously, so that shows you, that this team kind of needed to maybe lean on him in this game. And maybe it was like, hey, look, maybe it was kind of a light bulb going off in their head. Like, hey, maybe it is, Rice that needs the 10 targets and not Justin Watson, as the listeners of this podcast remember me, ranting last week that, this team, this is, the offense isn't going to look good if Watson's the guy out of all these guys getting the 11 targets. All of a sudden, Rice is the one getting 10 targets and we're all celebrating a win and looking and feeling good about the offense. It's just that's just natural because he's the most, he's the most talented receiver right now for what they have. But you mentioned, guys like, not being able to be efficient in the targets they get. At the same time, when Rice is the one that gets 11 targets and you also have Kelce eating up 7 or 8 targets, Sky is going to be at his best when he's only getting 3 targets for 3 catches. Like, he had that one play where he's catching, at the line of scrimmage, juked. Was it Marcus Peters? It might have been Marcus Peters. He juked out, which, that's maybe not the biggest compliment or the hardest thing to do in the world is make Marcus Peters miss a tackle. But he did get the first down. It was probably his career highlight. But he had a few other plays where they were definitely trying to get him the ball, getting downhill. But again, only 3 targets. Like, hey, that might just have to be how it is. Justin Watson only got 3 targets, but he had the one touchdown catch, right, where he got knocked on his butt and got right back up. I know you like that, Stags.
He got back in the guy's face afterwards too. Got a penalty. That was kind of dumb, but at that point in the game, it didn't matter too much.
Did he get a penalty?
What's that?
Did he get a penalty on that? I thought it was.
Yeah, he got an unsportsmanlike conduct for getting up in the guy's face after scoring that touchdown.
I thought they called it on him. Okay.
Yeah, 15-yarder on the kickoff, but again, it didn't really matter. That was the end of the half, if I remember correctly.
I like seeing some juice. I like seeing some juice from Watson.
Why not? But yeah, I mean, obviously he and MVS are at the bottom of the production charts. But if you take the 2 of them out, Rashee Rice caught 8 of 10. Yeah, one of them was probably a drop. One was questionable. It was a tough catch. That one that was low. Mm-hmm. Kelce caught 6 of 7. Sky Moore caught 3 of 3. But they also targeted Pacheco 5 times. He got 5 catches on 5 targets. 6.8 yards per catch, nothing, outrageous, but productive screen game. And actually, if you factor in the fact that the very first play he got was an 11-yard loss on the screenplay, you take that out of there. Pacheco had, as I pointed out in the winners and losers article this week, he had 100 yards total in this game if it wasn't for that 11-yard loss. But that drug his average down as well. But you've got to really, you use Pacheco in the pass game. You use Noah Gray in ways that actually worked for him. Three targets, 3 catches. So really that group of pass catchers, those 5 players that caught the focused amount of the targets, for some reason is dramatically different than when they get 11 players involved and spread the targets super thin.
Yeah, no, the Pacheco stuff was nice, because it was 2 screens, but it was also 2 other times where, it was one was a true check down and he got 11 yards on it. The other was more just, hey, it's kind of in the read, and Mahomes, the downfield stuff wasn't there, so he quickly went to him in the flat and he got it to him in rhythm. And that's the thing is, when Pacheco may not be the shiftiest dude, but if you can get him the ball in space just going downhill, it doesn't have to be as shifty. I mean, he's great, and so that's where he can be a really useful receiver. And so it's nice to see him being more and more involved there. They'll use him more on pass downs as it goes, but it doesn't hurt to kind of shelf McKinnon too as the season goes, because on pass downs I still think he's a valuable player, even though they need to hand the ball off to him less and less, I think.
Sure, and I will say also Isaiah Pacheco was used better in the run game, and I think we talked about this a little bit in our group chats. But the fact that they ran some counters and some downhill stuff, like that was a really fun way to get him with a head of steam going downhill and hitting a gap, hitting a hole, maybe putting in some concepts that we've been asking for a long time there as well in the run game. What did you see there?
Oh yeah, no, our guy Caleb James, check him out at CJ Scoobs. He's writing it for us on the site. But the run game, there's ways it can improve schematically, and we saw it in the Raiders game just simply by, you mentioned the powers and counters, but we saw some good old trap, the old 3-tech trap, where you're just and I bet it's a check the line of scrimmage as it typically is. Hey, which side's the 3-tech on? We're going to run to that side. Trey Smith's going to do a quick pull and kick out block of that defensive tackle, the wider one. It's going to hit right up the A gap really quickly. And Pacheco, at times in his career, he's more of a stutter step guy, and before he goes, but on those kind of plays, he did show a good job of just accelerating right away, because you can't mess around on and wait around on traps. So they ran that twice and succeeded twice. One was a touchdown. It was really cool to see them go to that, and it just does show you that they're understanding that there is a different, more layers to the playbook in the run game that they can get to that can help but they can still do better in terms of I think Pacheco, he only had 55 yards, 3.5 per carry. Mm-hmm. He didn't have a 10-yard rush. They can still do better. Raiders' run defense has been stout, but they could still have a better game than they did. Yeah.
You would think that power game would play right into the hands of Trey Smith and some of those other guys who actually had a pretty good game. And so, I think there's some real potential there. And I think, again, we've been calling for balance. We've been calling for a solid run game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a couple good runs this week. One of them was called back for penalty, but the last 2 weeks in very limited action, he showed that he can be part of that rotation, that he can give Pacheco a breather now and then, and maybe they don't have to force it to McKinnon. They can actually use Clyde as a backup there.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. Clyde, he had a pass per rep. We'll talk about the play in a second. On a deep pass attempt, he didn't do necessarily bad on it, but it's something where Jarek is very good there, and Pacheco's even getting better at it. And Clyde's just not going to be able to withstand, kind of be the anchor, have as much anchor as those guys. And so that's where on pass downs, that's he might be a little weaker than the other guys. But that's the thing. Clyde's always been, good with the ball in his hands in space, one-on-one. And so, if they can use more of that, go ahead, because he is running hard right now.
Yeah, why not? Something else I didn't call out of the article this week, partially because I didn't want to jinx it. If you watch the broadcast this week, the announcers said, hey, the Raiders kicker was 30 of 30 or whatever the number was, 32 of 32 from that distance, and then he promptly missed that field goal. And then they said their punter is the best in the league, Pro Bowl caliber punter, and then he shanks a punt right after that. You hate to jinx kickers, but the Chiefs just tweeted out a little bit ago, Harrison Butker is now 48 of 48 this season, the best start ever for a Chiefs kicker. The Chiefs have had some legendary kickers. I mean, Jan Stenerud, Nick Lowry. I mean, this is a franchise of kickers. And for him to go 48 of his first 48, watch, he'll miss his very next kick because we're jinxing him now. But what a start for Harrison Butker.
Well, Stags, I mean, you can blame the Chiefs. It's not our fault. I mean, they're the ones who tweeted it. You know, it's a social media thing. It's not our fault. Wow, that is cool. Definitely goes with the tweet I had this weekend when Justin Tucker missed a very easy kick for Tucker indoors. It was like a 40-plus yarder. Maybe it was close to 50, but Justin Tucker is off his game, man. And so I think it's time. Harrison Butker needs to be first-team All-Pro kicker. Although Jake Elliott, the Eagles kicker, is definitely making a run with that kick he had in the Bills game, like 59 yards in the rain was wild. And then I think the Cowboys kicker is perfect on field goals, but he's like missed extra points. So like you can't, you know, I don't know if we can involve that. So I think Butker is in the lead for first team All-Pro kicker. How about that? I think we even I think we tried to give him some love for that earlier in the season. So it's cool to see him come into fruition there.
Absolutely. What else is your breakdown? We haven't talked about the defense really at all yet.
Yeah, no, the defense individually, you know, just zoning in on the defense, you know, the first few drives, it really was, or first 3 drives, right? Because the second drive, they didn't give up any points, even though the Raiders probably should have went for it on that 4th down, kind of deep in their territory, and then they missed the field goal. But it was really just missed execution on the first few drives. First of all, I mean, like Davante Adams got loose on that first play. Yeah, he beat Snead across the field. That was just tough. It was a play action pass. Later in that drive, though, there was a play where they blitz, they overload one side. They actually Spags created a blitz enough to where there was 2 offensive linemen on the left side for the Raiders just blocking nothing. They were looking around like, oh shoot, and so he dialed it up well. But O'Connell, we said it at the top. Got to give him credit. He beat it. Karlaftis had a chance. He was dropping into the fire zone coverage, had a chance to kind of break it up and just kind of hesitated to get over there. It was kind of weird, honestly. But it is kind of the risks of continuing to run, you know, zone coverages where, you know, the guys in short zones are your defensive ends and tackles and not linebackers. But, hey, you know, that's what Spags does. It works out a lot of the time.
Yeah,
and then
there was that one play where Omenihu was downfield as part of a double team. And they did not complete the pass. So, you know,
I missed that somehow. I went through the film last night. Someone else mentioned that in Twitter. I was looking for it. I must have missed that because there was the other one where Noddy was it dropped back. I tweeted that one out last night while I was watching Derek Noddy in a short zone.
That's a bold strategy, Cotton.
I said, yeah, no, it's one thing to be dropping 260-pound Karlaftis, and it's another to be dropping 320-pound Derek Noddy. Onto the side Davante Adams is throwing to. And that's what happened. It was a completion to Davante Adams. That's why it was funny. It was just like, and I tweeted it out during the game when that happened. Like, are we overthinking it a little bit? Like, can we just maybe with Aiden O'Connell just play straight up and force him to make a throw? But he was making throws. So it's one of those things where, you know, the Chiefs defense at first, you kind of just have to tip your cap. Like they tried to, you know, force O'Connell into mistakes, into early, you know, interceptions or sacks. And at first he was just throwing out of it. He was making plays. The touchdown pass to Jacoby Myers actually was just Justin Reed just really blowing coverage, unfortunately. You know, he's had a good year. I love what Jay Reed's done this year. He had a rough start to the game, though. He missed a tackle at another point. And what he did here was, you know, it was man across the board. You know, usually in that situation, you know, Snead's locked up on Adams, and then it was McDuffie locked up on Renfro. And then you saw Jalen Watson and Reed communicating, hey, you know, man match, meaning like if my guy goes out, I'm not going to follow him. I'm going to stay inside because there's someone else coming in. And Jay Reed just goes out. Myers is left wide open inside. No one picks him up. And then Brian Cook misses the tackle. There were some missed tackles. That Josh Jacobs touchdown run, Mike Edwards missed a pretty bad tackle in the open field. And our guy, first round pick FAU was really the culprit of that. He got hooked so hard inside as a front side edge defender on that run that it just gave Jacobs a wide open hole. McDuffie as the nickel defender there got just mauled by a tight end. And that's where, there's a difference between Snead and McDuffie in the slot is that McDuffie, as good as he is as a blitzer, like he's still a small dude and can be blocked probably easier than Snead can. And so all that to say, Stags, is there's just some execution things, but it's nothing like truly to worry about. I think it was just the Raiders came out, played well, and got the Chiefs, caught the Chiefs in a few bad spots.
Yeah, I thought early on there were some big mistakes by safeties, and as I was writing the winners and losers this week, it was tricky because I could have easily put either Reed and or Cook, or Edwards based on some different plays that happened there. But the way they came back around, it felt like they got the job done after that first couple series. And Felix, yeah, he was another tough one. Like, got hooked on that long run, and definitely was part of the problem there. But also ended up getting a hit on the quarterback, and was definitely not didn't have a lot of snaps, so it wasn't like he was a big factor in the game other than that one play. So sometimes, yeah, you just got to chalk it up to, hey, they got us on that one. Hey, let's move forward. So,
and Josh Jacobs is a great running back. Like, he really is. Like, not every running back's taking that to the house. But the Chiefs defense, they were rotating a lot, and you're going to see this down the stretch, guys. It's like they are not going to be playing everybody as much as they would be if it was a playoff game. I mean, they are rotating guys like Matt Dickerson and probably more than they would. They're rotating guys like FAU on a rundown, and they probably would not even put FAU in on a rundown at all in a playoff game, just because it's that crucial. You can't do that. But a pass down, I think he's still obviously valuable. So no, I don't think you need to freak out. Anyone needs to freak out about FAU at this stage of it. I think he's just not, someone you need to be putting in on a run play, on the front side of a run play too. He's definitely going to struggle there at times.
Just as the offense is built around now, should be built around, Rashee Rice and Isaiah Pacheco. The defense, in a lot of ways, is it built around Drew Tranquill and Trent McDuffie now? Like, these are the guys, in addition to Chris Jones, obviously. But this defense, is continually making plays, and every single time you see a big tackle around the line of scrimmage, generally it's 23 getting in there. It is Drew Tranquill and Trent McDuffie both hit different, and they move different when they're working in that run game or in the short passing game.
Yeah, no, I mean, this defense under Spags has always kind of run through that slot position, right? I mean, since Tyron, since Snead, and now McDuffie, that's why McDuffie's in there, because he's such, Spags trusts him to run that and be that player that can make all those plays. I just mentioned him getting washed out on the run play. But yeah, I mean, that's going to happen. He makes up for it by all the other plays he makes, and especially against the run. He's a great playmaker against the run. He just, if he doesn't get the right leverage at first, yeah, he's a little smaller dude. He can get caught up. So McDuffie is that dude, but Tranquill really just moving around in the box. They really are just allowing their linebackers, all of them, to make plays all over the place. I know, Chenal didn't have the best game. Actually, on that run play, I really should mention that Tranquill and Chenal are really the ones that just got way too far upfield into the box and just didn't give themselves enough room to scrape over. And that's why there was no one on the second level. If you watch that play, as soon as he breaks the line of scrimmage, there is nobody around. It's all Edwards and Jacobs from there. And so Chenal definitely didn't have the best game. Tranquill had a good game again, though. But again, these linebackers are being put in positions to make a bunch of plays, which is just fun because that's what they are. They're just playmakers. Like they are going to be maybe some, here and there where there's a mistake. Like Willie, Willie's going to have his missed tackle, going to have his over pursuit, but he makes up for it in the run game by just being a missile at times. So I think Spags just continuing to do that. And once Bolton gets back, I'm telling you, we're going to see some fun stuff in the run game on early downs, run blitzes, just kind of firing dudes from all places. We're going to see some fun stuff when Bolton's back.
Well, at least for 3/4 of this game, it was a complete game for this team. It was offense, defense, special teams. They didn't turn the ball over. We complained about penalties, but they only had 4 that actually counted. They only gave up 1 sack in this game. Everything was pretty clean, pretty positive, and we can think about this as a big sign of things to come. So that said, I feel like we're going to be talking positive about this team today. We're going to talk positive about them, hopefully, over the next few weeks as they continue to win. Ron, I feel like you're about to bring us down.
I am the party pooper, Stags. Yes, that is right. I am the party pooper. This is going to be a new segment on the show for the rest of the regular season, honestly. And you know why? And it's because I do believe this team is about to go on a run down the stretch in terms of winning football games. Do I think that's going to mean they are magically getting better at the things we were worried about in the loss to the Eagles, in other bad games earlier this year? No, and that's why I want to be a party pooper. This week's edition wants to highlight the deep pass game. Again, not showing any signs of life. The Chiefs overcame it this week by the Raiders defense being bad. First of all, I do think we have to acknowledge that there were a lot of bad miscues by the Raiders offense or Raiders defense that led to big plays in the pass game from short passes, right? And that's why we didn't really think about, oh, the deep pass game wasn't working. Mahomes attempted one throw of over 20 yards in the air against the Raiders. It fell harmlessly to the ground, incomplete on third down. It was the last play of the second drive. And what happened there, Mahomes actually talked about it in the post game, is the Raiders aligned in a one high look, looking like to play man coverage. And what Mahomes had was Kelce going on a crosser across the field and Watson from that same side as Kelce doing a corner route. And so what he anticipated, he said this after the game, he predetermined that safety was going to kind of come up and help Kelce's man take him away. But once the ball was snapped, the Raiders actually came on a full out blitz, cover zero. That safety actually came down and became the man defender on Kelce and actually ran into the guy that was covering Watson on the corner. And Kelce is running wide open across the field. The blitz obviously forces Mahomes to get rid of the ball quicker, than he needs to, or than he'd like to. But, he kind of said it pre-game or post-game. I predetermined that the safety was going to go with Kelce, so that corner route would be open. Watson, got hung up. It wasn't there. The only play they went, 20 yards downfield, it was still kind of a miscommunication or kind of a miss, just like a miss by Mahomes, a miss by someone in the pass offense. And that's what we've been seeing, kind of out of rhythm, out of touch, the pass offense. So it didn't get any better, the deep pass offense, I should say, in this game. The only time we got a chance at it still was kind of ugly. So, and Doug Blue Checkmark at DW Overdrive on Twitter actually, set us up here. I should have asked this earlier. How much should we worry about Mahomes missing some deep layups as teams play more and more cover zero? Has something changed, or am I overreacting? It's not. I honestly don't think it's on Mahomes. I think it's these receivers just not playing consistently. Not, I highlighted it last week on the AP Film Room. If you really want to see, and Dan Orlovsky actually on Twitter did a really good job of highlighting it too, of MVS and Justin Watson not running the right angles on the routes deep against the Eagles, and that led to some of those incompletions. So I do think it's not something that we need to worry about with Mahomes, but I think it's what I've been talking about with these receivers is that's just kind of something that they aren't on the same page with him right now. It's not clicking. And I don't know if it's just going to be fixed in season. I think that's more of a talent thing. And so I do think there's something to teams trusting themselves in cover zero more, saying, hey, look, it's a pass down. Let's heat up Mahomes because I don't think they're going to hook up down the field when we allow a deep pass. Like that's what's happening. Like it really is. Imagine a team saying that 2 years ago about the Chiefs offense, saying, "Oh, hey, I'll play no safety help on a pass down." It's what's happening.
Yeah, a real downer thought is something changed. Yeah, they traded Tyreek Hill. I mean, this was a great downfield passing team when they had a great downfield receiver to go with Mahomes. So right. MVS should be that guy. He has not been in recent times, and most of the rest of their guys are just not built that way. Sky Moore is just not going to be that deep over the shoulder, down the field type receiver. And Justin Watson, he'll get one here and there, but it seems like Justin Watson's most valuable in the scramble drill and not necessarily on a designed route. So there'll be some growing pains there. I hope they find ways to continue making big plays because this offense doesn't necessarily need to be a great deep passing offense, but they've got to make big plays, right? It can't just all be dink and dunk stuff. So they have to, get guys open down the field. This last week, I thought against the Raiders was a great example of, they were creative about getting Kelsey open deep. They hit a couple of those. That one throw, by the way, that keeps getting highlighted with all the different angles on Twitter was nuts from Mahomes to Kelsey.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But, and so, yeah, I don't feel too bad about Mahomes' ability to throw downfield. But with the receivers they have, they just have to be a little bit more creative.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Mahomes was 5 for 5 on passes between 10 and 19 yards thrown down the field, which that is one of those. I mean, he was dynamite when it's the intermediate parts of the field, which, in some instances, if he's hitting that 18 to 19 yard air mark, like it feels like a downfield throw. So, that stat's always going to be, a little wiggle room. But on true, deep pass attempts where he's letting it air out. I mean, we all know, we've all seen it. It's just been ugly all season, and it's just hard. And with all the offensive success this week, I guess my party pooper point is that that did not look any better, and it really didn't even get a chance to look any better. And good teams are going to force them to make those plays in the playoffs.
Yeah, they may have to hit the intermediate pass and rely on some yak to get those big plays. But tell you what, it's just about time to hear from our sponsors and take a little break. We'll go back to Ron's other favorite game, which is what NFL player am I? What do you got for me this week?
Oh yeah, we're going for a stump this week because Chiefs and Packers, they have a history. They have some players, but I settled on this guy. So Stags, what NFL player am I? I was a first round pick of the Packers in the 90s, but I came over and played with the Chiefs after that, trying to help that early 2000s defense, get some support for that great offense, the Priest Holmes offense. Failed, obviously. Didn't get too much help to that offense and left Kansas City short after that. So only played 2 years in KC on that defense in the early 2000s. And let's just say my last name, you could, it's another word for, Thanksgiving, Christmas. Yeah, let's just say that.
Oh, come on. All right. We'll see if Ron's able to stump me after this. Make sure you stick with us on the Out of Structure podcast. We'll be right back with more of your questions after this. And we're back on the Out of Structure podcast. Thanks for sticking with us. This is Matt Stagner here with Ron Kopp Jr. And Ron almost had me stumped with this week's What NFL Player Am I? He was talking about a player that's played for both the Packers and the Chiefs that was a first-round pick for the Packers and then a short-time defender for the Chiefs in the era when they weren't playing a whole lot of defense. So I was almost stumped, and then you had to give me a hint on the last name. I think you probably saw in my face. I didn't know it. So you gave me the extra hint about our guy, Vonnie Holiday.
Yeah, I'm terrible. I don't know why I went that extra leg. I was trying to think of another way to put it, but yeah, there's just no other way. So you are correct.
You're just too kind, Ron. You just didn't want to leave me hanging, and I appreciate it. Let's get to some more mailbag questions, including one from the Gmail account. Go ahead, Ron.
Yes. My guy, Sonny DeRod. Hope I'm saying that right. Appreciate you emailing my guy. He just wanted to thank us for the pod. He started listening to us this season. Thinks we're the best duo on Arrowhead Pride. Shout out, Sonny. There might be some bias here, though, because he definitely went to the same high school I did. Shout out, Shawnee Mission Northwest alum. Anyways, his question is, assuming the Chiefs go on to secure a number 1 or number 2 seed, which one of the AFC teams would be the scariest wild card or divisional round matchup for the Chiefs as a potential 7 seed opponent? I love looking ahead like this because it is that time of year where you start just looking at the AFC playoff picture every week and seeing, who's where, who's what, which is like funny because right now the Indianapolis Colts are the 7 seed, which no one would have thought, a few weeks ago, Gardner Minshew led Colts. But yeah, he had a few options here, Stags. But admittedly, this question's a little old. So we're gonna change up his options a little bit and just say, let's talk about this 7 seed race and talk about some of the teams in the mix, because I mentioned the Colts are in there. The Texans are just outside of the 7 seed. The Broncos are 6-5 now on a 5-game winning streak and are right there in the thick of it. And then the Bills and the Bengals are still hanging around. So I don't know. Out of those kind of 5 teams, obviously the Bengals don't have Joe Burrow anymore, but But I don't know what's kind of the scariest team. Are you scared of the Bills still, even after kind of losing some big games lately?
Yeah, it's tough. I think there's always the fear of the Chargers, right? Because they're just a talented team, and the Broncos got the win earlier. I don't think that would happen in the playoffs, but there's any given Sunday is a real thing in the NFL. That said, it all depends on if the Chiefs are playing their best brand of football. I don't think it really matters which of these teams they face. I think they're going to be all right. It's a I think I said this last year. It's not so much about the opponent; it's about how the Chiefs are playing at that point when they get there. Buffalo is one of those teams that has the talent to win, but they're not playing like it lately. And I saw a crazy stat that I think was it Josh Allen is now 0-4 in overtime games in his career?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
0 for whatever.
He hasn't won. I know that. He hasn't won.
0 for overtime in his career, and so you start looking at some of those teams and saying, hey, when it matters, when you have to come up in the clutch, who do you worry about? So give me that list again. Who are the 7 seeds?
So the Colts are it right now, and I should say the Steelers and Browns are the 5 and 6 seed currently, so they could always drop down.
Yeah.
But the Colts are the 7 seed. The Texans are right behind them with C.J. Stroud, rookie quarterback, looking good. That defense is a little suspect, but again, C.J. Stroud's looking good. Broncos, Bills. You got the Bengals right behind them, and then it gets to the 7-loss teams, which I don't think, in how crowded it is right now, I doubt any of these 7-loss teams get in there. So, yeah, I would say the Bills are still that team that if they sneak in there, it is going to be kind of interesting, man, because their defense is awful, I will say. Like, they are just so decimated with injuries right now. Their cornerbacks are they whiffed on Kyer Elam as a first-round pick, apparently, because he's not even able to really play for them.
You mean should they call him not Trent McDuffie? Is that the
yeah? Exactly. Oh man, best video there is going. I mean, if you wanna pick me up as a fan, I mean,
the
Bills
GM about the draft room.
When they realized the Chiefs traded up to get McDuffie, and I the funny thing is I was a huge Kyer Elam fan, so I thought he was going to be a good corner.
He's a very athletic guy, right? He just hasn't maybe put it all together.
Yeah, their system doesn't really fit him, honestly. I think he'd be better, honestly, in our system. But all that to say, they still are the team to me. It's like if they're the 7th seed and they're coming to Arrowhead for the first game of the playoffs, it's not the best feeling. I'm confident, right? I'm confident. The defense is that bad, but like Josh Allen is still playing well this year. I think the turnovers have been overblown. A lot of his turnover, he's had bad turnover luck this year. When in past, he's had good turnover luck.
And there's always some regression to the mean when it comes to turnovers, right? So you'll have some give and take there.
Yeah. So I think the Bills are really the answer here.
The Bills would be the answer for the lower seed. Really the only teams that I would be really worried about the matchup would be the Dolphins and the Ravens in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, those wouldn't be first round, wouldn't be wild card weekend games. But if the Chiefs were to get the number 1 seed, get that bye week, after the bye, they could end up playing Miami fairly likely. That would be a pretty tough matchup for a divisional round, just given the weapons there. And the motivation will be there for Tyreek, and he's going to put on a big game one way or the other. So it would be a fun matchup with as well as the Chiefs defense and especially the secondary have been playing. If those teams that rely on the passing game and have good receivers, it would be fascinating matchups. And Baltimore is just a really good all around team, and so they would be a tough matchup as well. So, but again, the Chiefs play their best. They're going to go on a run here. I'm going to jump to Ed Holinsky's question. Looking at the rest of the schedule, do you think the Chiefs will stumble a game or two, or will they run the table? Whether they run the table or not, I think the Chiefs are going to put it together and be, pretty likely that number 1 or number 2 seed. I think they have every reason to believe they should be the number 1 seed at this point, given the rest of this schedule. So they've got the Packers this week, then the Bills at home, at the Patriots, home against the Raiders, home against the Bengals, and at the Chargers. I think when we did our predictions the last couple of weeks, I think I've got at least one more loss slated for the team in here. I could see them drop on one more. I could see them winning out. Obviously, recency bias says that maybe they'll win out, and after the loss last, to the Eagles, maybe we were thinking more that they would have another couple losses. So, we'll see. What do you think as far as the rest of the season? Do you see more stumbles?
Yeah, I think I predicted, the Chargers game to be the really only loss, but I really feel like that team's going to be, a shell of itself by that point, week 18. Staley, there's no way Brandon Staley lasts. I'm surprised he's still the coach of the Los Angeles Chargers with how they've played this year. So honestly, I mean, I think the Bills are really going to come in, and that's going to be their Super Bowl. They're going to be backs up against the wall. Even if it wasn't like, even if they weren't the 6-6 team that's like barely in the playoff race, like that would be a huge game. But you got to believe like they're going all out in that game. But I still think the Chiefs could take care of that, especially since it's in Arrowhead. And so I think there's a really good chance if the Chiefs take care of business, they can go, they can take, go on a run the rest of the season and not lose. But I think this team has shown too many undisciplined games and too many times where they've just, penalties. Again, I'm the party pooper, right? So yeah, I'm gonna say that I'm sure they stumble at least one time still, like I predicted a couple weeks ago.
That's probably fair. They'll drop at least one more. But if they drop one more, if you look at the schedule for the rest of the contenders, there's still a decent chance they could drop one and be the 1 seed.
Right.
If they win out, they are the 1 seed. But if they drop one more, then they need a little bit of help to get that 1 seed. I don't think we can be super confident that the Ravens are going to win out, for example, in the AFC.
Yeah, right. The Ravens have still some teams to play. I don't have their schedule in front of me, but I know they have the Jaguars still to play, which obviously that knocks one of those two teams out. But they also obviously have some AFC North teams that they're going to beat them up. They have the Steelers still to play at the end of the season. They have the Niners still to play. Ooh, Miami still to play. Oh, yeah. Wow. So, yeah, I mean, so the Chiefs really are sitting pretty because, I mean, I just said, I mean, the rest of the AFC contenders are kind of still having to play each other and give each other a loss.
Yeah, imagine a scenario where the Ravens beat the Jaguars and then lose to the Niners.
Right.
At least if not more games than that, that scenario alone means that the Chiefs are almost certainly going to be the 1 seed if they win.
Yeah, the Ravens do have a nice bye week, which was this last week. And so that's why, people were like, oh, the Ravens are the 1 seed. Ravens are the 1 seed. Well, they just played more games. And now each team has the same amount of losses. And the Chiefs, luckily, their bad games, 2 of their bad games this year have come against NFC teams. So that's why they do actually have the tiebreaker when it comes down to it.
Add Jake for now. Jake Wilson, our guy. Draft grades, comps, combine stats. That's the yardstick that we measure the front office success, and we discount development after the draft. I think that's an interesting statement. It's something we can talk about. I think this team, certainly is relying currently on a lot of players that they're developing that they did draft. So his question is, which Chiefs on rookie deals have exceeded expectations and who gets too little credit or recognition for their contributions? So looking through the rookie deals, I think it's pretty clear. Let's throw out a couple that we can just all agree that they've exceeded expectations. Rashee Rice is exceeding expectations at this point. Trent McDuffie, George Karlaftis. I think it's pretty clear all of those guys have exceeded expectations, and they're still on their rookie deals. Of course, Nick Bolton, Creed Humphrey, knocked it out of the park with both of those guys on their rookie deals. We'll see what happens as far as getting new contracts. L'Jarius Sneed, again, somebody else that is due for a new contract but has absolutely crushed what we expected of him on his rookie deal. Anybody else that stands out to you that has exceeded expectations so far?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned L'Jarius Sneed. That 2020 draft is really, the start. It's obviously it's the last, the last year of the rookie deals in the current year, right? That's Dana, Sneed, Gay. They're all in the rookie deals, and that's the guys that I'm about
Yeah,
to mention
that's a
that
good
they
point.
got.
Maybe somebody who's getting too little recognition is probably Mike Dana.
Oh yeah.
He's still trending towards nearly a double-digit sack season this year after being pretty solid over the last couple of years.
Yeah, so that's those three honestly are all guys that I think are playing into potential nice contracts this offseason. I think Willie is proving something as a second linebacker, that will linebacker. I think, it's just a crowded room, so I think they rotate him in and out a lot, but so he isn't like the full-time Will. I think Leo plays a lot of that too at times, but I think Willie and Mike Dana are going to be guys that we may not even expect to see the size contracts they get because other teams are watching the Chiefs defense right now saying, how are they so good? And realizing that, okay, they got dudes. These guys are playing their roles really well. And that's the kind of guys that get paid. I mean, they're Dana, he's like the perfect, he's not going to, he's going to probably get paid more than people think he should get paid, but he's not going to disappoint you. I can guarantee you that. And so, I think Willie is a little more volatile depending on where he goes, but all that to say, and L'Jarius is just, I mean, I'm not even talking about him because he's just become, such a good corner. So, yeah, I think Willie and Mike Dana are the guys that are going to get underrated contracts this year.
Yeah, and the more I look at this list, Trey Smith is still on his rookie deal, obviously dramatically exceeding expectations. I think Isaiah Pacheco, I don't know if I mentioned him the first time through, but yeah, just knocked that one out of the park. He's just killing it. There's other guys like Joshua Williams, who's been a good role player, Jalen Watson as well. No matter what, those guys are still day 3 draft picks that are rotating and making plays. So are they perfect players? Are they your stars? Are they going to get massive deals this next time around? Probably not, but they are part of the solution here, and they didn't cost a whole lot because they're on this late round rookie deals, 4th and 7th rounders, respectively.
Right. Someone like Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson could still, they're very early in this, right? They could turn into the Dana or the Charvarius Ward or, someone that by the end of their rookie deal, they are being looked at as a contract guy.
What about Shamari Connor? Where has he been as relates to your expectations for him in his rookie season?
So, I mean, it's hard to say because I didn't have very high expectations for him on defense. So I guess I'd say he's exceeded him because he's being used. He's good on special teams, man. Tobe has mentioned how good Connor's been on special teams in press conferences. We already knew that, so that's kind of the same expectation. But on defense, man, they are trusting him to just be playing in the slot like Sneed was trusted, for a lot of his career. And that's something that maybe I didn't think they'd want to do right away because he is vulnerable in coverage, in my opinion. But they're doing a pretty good job of only putting him in and run situations a lot of times when he's just, having a thicker body on the edge rather than McDuffie, kind of like I talked about earlier. And then you can leave McDuffie and Sneed on the outside. So I think I'd say Connor is exceeding expectations. He is kind of on the track to be kind of the Sneed in the slot guy that maybe some people said he would be that I didn't think we'd maybe see from him right away.
Yeah, getting back to Jake's point here, if we're discounting development post-draft, I actually think the Chiefs have done a pretty darn good job developing young players post-draft, and they've actually flopped a little bit in the let's focus on former first-rounders that we can rehab their careers and so really putting a lot of stock into previous draft grades and trying to rehab some careers. That hasn't worked out as well. That was a big story for a couple of years there. So I think for the most part, they've been really developing, especially young players on defense. I mean, even saw on offense, Wanya Morris got a couple snaps this week, and yes. He's not, he is not a big enough sample size to determine a whole lot. But tell you what, they put him in on the very first play. I believe it was 3rd and 1, and they ran behind him and picked up 3 yards right off the bat. So that shows a little bit of confidence in him. That shows his ability to put his head down and push a defender back, and that was a good block he made on that play. The next rep, I believe, was pass protection, and he looked. I mean, he pushed his guy out around the arc, but it wasn't a perfect rep. But there may still be something to see there. All of this to say, what I was trying to get to is that they've been pretty good at developing almost every position except for wide receiver, and now that Rashee Rice is coming on, maybe there's hope for that position group as well.
Yeah, and I'd even just say, I mean, you talked about defense, but like I think Spags and the assistant coaches just really need a lot of credit for what they've done. Someone like Dave Merritt, he's probably not going to last long here just because, like, at some point teams are going to realize, why are all these DBs playing so well in Kansas City continually? I think Spags deserves a lot of that. He was originally a DB's coach. I think he gets known for his pass rush schemes, but he was originally DB's coach. His scheme, relies a lot on the DBs to, play hard, play physical, play sound. And so, yeah, I think it's really a lot of credit to these guys developing the DBs. We want to give credit so much to Veach for like finding these, Jalen Watson and Ladarius Sneed, but I think there's a real chance that they go other places and they don't become the same kind of players they do, because here Spags is turning them into really good players, and that's why he's such a good defensive coordinator.
Absolutely. And when it comes to wide receivers, you could go back a few years and say, well, all right, well, they developed Tyreek Hill, who was not a full-time receiver in college and not a highly thought of prospect, into an all-pro, perennial all-pro type player. I do think that Rice is on his way to being a very good player, and we'll see about the rest of Sky Moore and some of these other guys. But there are some receivers that there's still some hope for. That said, Mike Tavener Media asked, with the charges being dropped against Justin Ross, should we expect his return to the Chiefs? Should we expect it? And maybe phrased differently, when would we expect it if we do?
Yeah, no idea when. I don't have that kind of information. But I think you can imagine the Chiefs are going to, just by history, by precedent, they're going to give him, an opportunity to, live out or kind of, play out this, if he's going to be, eligible to do so. So, I don't think that's it didn't help him in terms of getting on the field. I think he might have kind of gone back to square one in terms of, we're not going to see, especially with Rice, maybe taking a step as a downfield receiver in that same way. I mean, he looked like Justin Ross on that catch he made in the game down the sideline. So, yeah, I don't expect him to be like released or cut or anything, but I definitely don't think he's just going to be all of a sudden drop back into the game. I think he's probably going to be more of a practice squad guy, I imagine.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard for him to crack the lineup. I do think they'll probably stand by him if the facts of the case and the situation are, what are something that they're comfortable with, and they'll do their homework. They'll figure that out on their own. They haven't released him yet, which tells me that they've done their due diligence and they feel at least somewhat comfortable carrying him at least for now.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Thomas Ramirez made one more point about the kind of comparing the wide receivers to the secondary. He said last year, Thomas actually is looking for some credit here. He's pulling out the receipts. He said, like I said earlier in the year, is the wide receiver core like the secondary from last year? They just needed time to gel and get to where we want to go. So credit to Thomas for that perspective. Yeah. I hope that is the case going forward. I'm not 100% sold that, the whole group is going to pan out the way we hope. I think Sky Moore still has a lot more to prove. I think, there's others there that, Kadarius Toney has not really delivered on the promise that we hoped for him. But, with the Chiefs maybe narrowing the field a little bit and starting to focus on their better playmakers, maybe there's some hope for this unit as a whole. But I'm not ready to give them young secondary status the way that Thomas has yet.
No, I'm not either. I mean, if anything, it's not like it's trending like super up. I mean, Rashee is trending up, but I think it's just him personally. Like, I really don't think that means any of the other parts of the receiving core. I just liked how they kind of used everyone else in compliment to Rice this week. That's not saying that I was like a super big fan of like what those receivers did and how they looked this week. I mean, Watson and MBS got 2 targets combined, and I know Watson scored, but like it was 0 yards total on 2 targets, like 2 catches, I should say. Yep, yeah. So the secondary was ascending much more than the receiving core is right now, I would say.
Hey, but if Thomas ends up being right, it might take until next year until we really see the fruits of it, right? Like, so the wide receivers, if they come out next year and look like the secondary does this year, then
That's true. Hey, it's not like the secondary played well in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly.
It was 38-35. So, yeah, I mean.
Well, it's about that time to take a look forward, talk about the Packers as the upcoming opponent. And I'm going to go back to our recent tradition of letting Ron do that preview while I bounce out, get back to my day job here. But thank you all for joining us and being with us for this edition of the Out of Structure podcast. I'll talk to you next week. Ron, tell us what you see about Chiefs Packers.
Yes, sir. See you, Stags. But yeah, we got Lambeau this week. Night game, little Sunday night action. It's always nice, prime time in Lambeau. Kind of a fun aesthetic to this game. Gives it a little more juice, right? Because that's the thing. I do think the Chiefs' opponents down the stretch, there's gonna definitely be some stinkers. I mean, they play the Patriots in New England. They play the Raiders again at home. They do play the Chargers again when they're a shell of themselves. They play the Bengals. So. It's nice, and the Packers are playing well, I will say. They're ascending. They're on a 2-game win streak. They beat the Chargers at home, and then on Thanksgiving, they came into Detroit and took control of that game pretty quick. I'm sure all you saw it as you watched or as you ate your turkey. Took control of that game. The offense looks better. They have a lot of young players. That's the thing, though, and that's why I think the key matchup is the Packers offense with Jordan Love, with all these young rookie receivers, rookie tight end, young players. That's a lot of youth against the Chiefs defense that is just going to be throwing a lot at you, making you think, making you think twice about what your route is or what your adjustment is or what my path is, or obviously Jordan Love just generally making him think, oh shoot, is it a blitz? Is it not? I think there's definitely something there to consider with the fact that this Chiefs defense is probably going to make Jordan Love's life hell, but at the same time, man, it's he's been playing well this year. He's been playing better and better. They put up 19 in Pittsburgh. They did lose that game. He threw the interception late. But the Chargers game 23, Lions 29 points. So I think the Packers offense, that's really the key matchup here is if they can, play like the Raiders did against the Chiefs defense at first, that could really help because the Packers defense does have talent. I mean, they do have guys on the other side of the ball that can definitely give the Chiefs trouble. Rashawn Gary is one of the best edge rushers in the league this year. He's had 8.5 sacks. He's someone that's definitely going to, be someone the Chiefs need to pay attention to. They have Preston Smith on the other side. He has 5 sacks this year. Kenny Clark on the inside. Devontae Wyatt from Georgia a couple of years ago. Lucas Van Ness is in the mix as well as a pass rusher. So you have guys on the front. The Chiefs pass protection is going to be tested much more than it was this week with only Max Crosby. It's going to be much more like the Eagles game. But hey, the Chiefs pass protection passed for the most part, passed the test against the Eagles. There was that 1 sack, but again, it was really scheme. I think I've mentioned that on this podcast as well as the YouTube show. So I think the the Packers pass rush is really the key thing here. They do have Jair Alexander back in the mix after an injury earlier this year. He is playing again. And he actually no, I think he did get hurt again, didn't he? He hasn't been playing the last few weeks. So shoot, scratch that. So really, you're talking about a defense that is, that is really going to be dealing with stuff. I mean, yeah, they've had running back trouble too with injuries. Aaron Jones had injuries at running back. He's missed games. AJ Dillon is, played through a groin injury last game, but yeah, no, Packers have been banged up. Packers are definitely getting back in it though. That game against the Lions can be kind of a refuel of juice, but this defense is definitely vulnerable. It's something that the Chiefs can take advantage of. And again, I think the Chiefs defense, is really mismatched for Jordan Love and a young offense. So watch for that. Watch for Spags to really take control of this game. I think you're going to see some sacks. You're going to see some turnovers. And we should have a fun one in Lambeau for the Chiefs. I don't think this one should be particularly close. It might look like the Raiders game, except, if the Chiefs execute a little more on defense, it could be, 31-10 instead of 31-17. It could be an even wider margin of victory. So that is it. That is it for the Out of Structure podcast today. Appreciate you guys listening. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Ron_Kopp. Follow me on the site, arrowheadpride.com. Make sure you're checking all of it out. We're going to have film reviews up this week from the Raiders game. We're going to have previews of the Packers game, 5 things to watch. So make sure you're tuned into it all. Appreciate y'all. And we will catch you next time.